we're here to make a new type of news.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Making news just for you. It's May 2nd here in Seoul. I'm Shin Yeun, and this is News Generation, where we make the news at Arirang's very own open studio. Every morning, we'll discuss the top issues and latest current affairs affecting people in their 20s and 30s. Joining me in the studio is Choi Ji-hee.
Good morning.
Good morning. And Cheska Dainong.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. And both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. Let's start with our news feed, which covers different hashtags and news items that have been trending on social media over the past 24 hours. Now, Italy has decided to allow people to use ChatGPT again. Italian regulators blocked the site at the end of March, raising concerns about how the chatbot processes and safeguards user data. But after its creator OpenAI implemented changes to its data privacy conditions, Italy has given ChatGPT the green light. Moving on to the second one, Japan's health ministry has approved an abortion pill to become available for the first time ever. Currently, Japan allows abortion for people who are up to 22 weeks pregnant. Surgical procedures were only available, but since the ministry's decision in late April, a two-step treatment drug can be used to terminate early-stage pregnancies, specifically those up to 9 weeks. And 50/50, a rookie girl group who debuted last November, is breaking global records. Global digital music streaming service Spotify said the group's song Cupid Twin version hit number 5 in the daily top songs in the world. It's the first time a girl group from a relatively small entertainment agency has swept the global charts like this. The only K-pop groups that have achieved this on Spotify is Blackpink, BTS, and New Jeans. Now let's take a closer look at the third news item. It's not the first time 50/50 has actually shaken up the global music industry. Just last week, 50/50 stayed within the Billboard Hot 100 Songs chart with its single Cupid for the 5th consecutive week. The group also formed a partnership with Warner Records, one of the biggest record labels in the States, to extend its presence in the North American market. And many netizens are trying to analyze the secret behind this group's popularity, especially since it's been produced by a relatively low-key agency called Attract that mostly has experience in creating content. So here in the studio, what do you guys think is making this girl group so popular?
I think as we just heard from the song that was playing in the background, it is extremely catchy.
It is.
And I think it definitely catch the attention of many TikTok users, as we know. So it's trending very high in international media. So this is what we call the reverse imported, where it becomes really popular globally, and then now it's trending back in South Korea. But also when we heard the song, for me, it was very tropical. So it kind of puts you in a very happy sort of like a light vibe. And also the lyrics being English, I think, caught the attention of the global
Exactly.
users.
A lot of people who heard this song were like, oh, this sounds like popular pop songs around the world. But what were your thoughts, Ji-hee? Why do you think it's so popular?
I believe it's because it focused solely on the quality of the music as well. I mean, when I first listened to the song, I was pretty surprised at the intro part because it didn't sound like a typical idol group music.
A typical K-pop idol
song. Not that they're not good, but it sounded pretty different.
Right.
And it wasn't promoted that actively, which is why not many people in the country knew about the music unless before it got reverse imported and got popular again here. And the producer An Sung-il, he explained that he wanted to focus on the musical talent and the skills of the individual members a lot more, and made sure that the unique characteristics of all the members were kind of presented in the music. And he also focused more on the US market in the beginning and made sure that the band can really have a competitive edge that's different from the typical K-idol groups.
Right, and that's why if you go to YouTube and look at all their music videos, you can see most of the comment sections are written in English or other different languages around the world. That's how popular globally they are. And that was our news feed for this Tuesday. Moving on to today's discussion topic. In bustling cities like Seoul, it may be difficult to get around, especially during rush hour. That's why a lot of people have been using e-scooters or electric scooters, but not everyone knows what regulations or safety guidelines they have to follow, which causes many safety hazards. To find out more, take a look at the screen. From September, you won't be seeing people riding electric scooters in Paris anymore. That's because majority of Parisians voted to remove them from the streets. Mainly because a lot of people flouted the rules of the road and ended up causing a safety hazard. Last year alone, 3 people died and 459 were injured from e-scooter accidents. E-scooters have posed a safety concern here in Korea as well. Over the past 5 years, the number of teen riders who've ended up in accidents has jumped by 46 times. Most rode these scooters without a driver's license, which is illegal. Use Gen Ames to answer 3 questions today. 1. It seems many young people are using e-scooters. Why? 2. How is South Korea regulating this popular transport method among millennials and Gen Z? 3. What measures do we need to see further strengthened? So today we'll be talking about a popular mode of transport among young people, e-scooters. So here in the studio, are you guys a big fan of e-scooters, and how many people, specifically young ones, tend to ride them?
So as of last year, September, there were about 230,000 rental scooters that were available in South Korea, and the sales have been going up almost twice year on year.
Wow.
So it is becoming extremely popular in South Korea at the moment, as we can see just by the figures. And I'm sure we've seen a lot of youngsters riding on the road, which we'll talk a little bit more about. But for me particularly, I rode it first actually in LA.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it made sense at the time because it was a city where, much like Seoul, you really can't travel very well without cars. And the roads were a little wider than Seoul City, so I felt safer riding it. But in Seoul City, I've ridden it. But I do admit there are some downsides to it as well.
There are, and I can agree to this because I've actually ridden these e-scooters myself, and I feel like I know the rules. You have to wear a helmet, you can be on the road.
Yeah.
But the cars behind me started honking, saying, "What are you doing here?" Because like the maximum speed limit is like around 30 kilometers per hour.
You can't go any faster if you want to.
I know, and they're like honking in rush hour, and I was like, okay, this is not for me then. And then that's why I started to decide to walking around instead. But what about you, G? Do you have any experience?
I can totally feel you because I'm not a frequent user. I only rode it about 3 times.
Oh, really?
Yes, and the 2 times was before we were penalized for not wearing a helmet.
Right.
But then I found it kind of a hassle to really register for the different apps of these scooters. And also you have to carry a helmet around.
Yes,
and
you
once
do.
you register, you have to take a photo of your driver's license. You have to add in your credit card information.
info,
It's
yes.
such a hassle. And a helmet. I mean, how can you carry a helmet around just for that one ride?
Right.
But I heard that you have a portable helmet. And unless you have a portable one, that's foldable
are
too.
you gonna take it out underneath? Because
Roller skater. She has a portable helmet.
Okay, for those of you who don't know, I am a roller skater and I always bring my portable helmet around. I'm like the advocate of it. You can fold it around, put it in your bag. It's really nice.
Yeah, but unless you have one, I don't. And also the roads here in Seoul are very narrow, bumpy, hilly, so it's really difficult and dangerous to ride these frequently, I believe.
You know what, Chihi? I'll lend you my portable helmet. I think then you would be able to ride these e-scooters. But because we're seeing a growing number of people, especially young ones, even without a license, start riding these e-scooters, we've seen a lot of related accidents over the past few years, right?
Right. So e-scooters in the city are dubbed the beasts
For sure.
of Seoul. Yes, as a growing number of consumers in the country are using the personal mobility option to commute to work daily. These traffic accidents involving e-scooters have increased in Korea in recent years. So as you can see through the chart on the screen, the number of accidents doubled every year and increased by 15 times within just 4 years. Now, over the past 5 years, some 4,000 people were injured and 45 died from these accidents. However, considering some minor accidents that are not reported to the authorities, the actual number could be even higher.
For sure, these figures could be higher. And now let's hear from a lawyer who has some expertise in traffic and road regulations to see how South Korea and other countries can regulate e-scooter riders and ensure safer roads. We're now going to hear from Kwon Hyuk-sung, a lawyer in South Korea. Welcome, Hyuk-sung.
Hello, good morning, everyone.
All right, and Hyuk-sung, I would like to ask how many e-scooter accidents occur every year, and which country has the most accidents per year? Is there some data on this?
Well, it's difficult to tell exact numbers of e-scooter accidents on a global scale because the number of e-scooter accidents varies greatly depending on the countries and regions. But in general terms, the United States and some Western European countries and other parts of Asia have experienced a significant number of e-scooter accidents nowadays. However, it is obvious that in many places, e-scooter usage has grown rapidly, which has led to an increase in accidents. Also, accidents related to personal mobility, including e-scooters, are becoming more and more severe. Well, in case of South Korea, as you all have discussed earlier, according to the announcements from related government offices, the number of traffic accidents caused by personal mobility devices, including e-scooter, rose sharply from 225 in 2018 to 1,735 in 2021. Well, in particular, the usage and accident rates are highest among the 10 to 20 age group who have a relative lack of safety education and driving experience.
For sure. It's really sad to see that a lot of youngsters are vulnerable to these types of e-scooter accidents. But then, what are some regulations to prevent accidents like this in Korea? Could you, as a lawyer, based on your expertise, explain how strict the penalties are?
Sure. As e-scooter accidents have become more serious issues in South Korea, there has been a growing call for measures such as safety campaigns, urging proper regulations to be developed to address this issue. Well, actually, as a result, a new regulation was adopted a few years ago regarding the e-scooter. First, as you have discussed earlier, you need a license to drive an e-scooter. Since the license is only available for those 16 years and older, you can drive an e-scooter from high school and above. Next, you should wear proper protection equipment, including helmets. Drivers of e-scooters and other vehicles should wear a suitable safety helmet when driving on the road. Also, you should wear luminous devices such as reflective belts and lights. Drivers of e-scooters must turn on the headlights and tail lights or wear luminous devices when driving on the road at night. And finally, you are forbidden to drive carrying other people. No more than 2 people drive the same e-scooter at the same time. Well, despite all of these regulations, few people comply or even know there are such regulations for e-scooter. If you do violate these regulations, in most cases, you will get fined, probably from $10 to $30. There are no criminal penalties, which is, in my opinion, much weaker compared to other countries like France or US.
Right.
So it sounds like regulations must be put in place and efforts must be made from 2 sides, the individual level and the government level.
For sure.
Yes, so, and I agree with how there should be safety campaigns to make sure that users and other bus drivers or taxi drivers, car drivers know that these e-scooters must be only on road, because Yeon, you said the bus
they don't know.
Driver didn't know.
Drivers were honking at me
exactly.
because, as you mentioned, they didn't know what the regulations were. And as you also mentioned, South Korea does seem to have relatively lenient rules against how they should penalize people who go against any regulations. But Paris, France, has actually decided to ban e-scooters as a whole. And as a lawyer, do you think this is the best way we could go?
Well, I think it's a common example of the development of new technology and industries always brings conflicts with existing establishments. The regulation regarding the e-scooter controversy are no exceptions. So we all understand people's worry about road safety regarding the e-scooter. Well, in that case, I believe the road safety is important and appropriate regulations are required. However, in my opinion, a complete ban on e-scooters like in Paris is a bit excessive in the case of South Korea. It could depress the development of related industries. So it seems important to find a balance between promoting the development of new technology and business sectors while creating a safe environment through effective regulations and proper education as well.
Hyuk-sung, I think you brought up a really good point, because sometimes when we take those radical measures of completely banning something before we take the time to actually renovate what we can, it can actually halt any sort of development and usage in our society.
Definitely, that was a very good point. Thank you so much, Hyuk-sung. It was great to hear from you today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and based on our conversation with Hyuk-sung just now, what do you guys think about the last question? Do you think South Korea should ban e-scooters completely like Paris?
I thought we should consider banning them, just like Paris. But after listening to Mr. Kwan, I feel like it could be a little excessive. Because it provides...
You have been persuaded
Yes,
by the
I've been
lawyer.
persuaded.
You have been lawyered.
I have been persuaded, I have to admit. I think striking a balance would be important because individuals, their convenience is important, but other people's safety is also important, right? And this industry has become huge, so it could depress the industry as well. So I believe we should have a balance of the regulations as well as the education for the users for us to make sure that these e-scooters could stay with us longer.
All right, what about you, Cheska? Were you lawyered?
I mean, I was already with Mr. Kwan. But I do agree that this is a very debatable topic because the pros and cons are extremely clear. I mean, the cons are the safety of the people, not only using it, but the people who are affected by it, right? The pedestrians, myself included, and us. But also, given the society that we live in with, as you know, heavy congestion, rush hours, people all commuting at the same time in a city like this, you know, city bikes and rental scooters could really elevate the pressure and the stress of people commuting and even bring back a little bit more exercise and health into their lives.
And definitely before we go on into our final thoughts, let's also hear from our global viewers. So we asked whether they had used electric scooters and what their thoughts were on it. So take a look at this screen. Leon Teo said, I have not ridden on an electric scooter before, but there were a lot of cases in Singapore of e-scooters catching fire while charging. Animal Agrawal said, not yet, but I do regularly use my bicycle to move about the campus. Hussein Demir said, I've used e-scooters and I did not feel safe at all. Sometimes having to write in the traffic. I'm not sure about requiring a driver's license though. So these are what our viewers had to say, and I think it all comes down to having safety measures and regulations and better infrastructure, right, Cheska?
Absolutely. And just to give you my example, when I was traveling in Europe, especially in Denmark and Netherlands, they had a very well-made infrastructure for the bike riders, so it was adhered to almost as if you are driving a car. The hand signals, the traffics, the roads. So in Korea, there are, as Mr. Kwon mentioned, penalties for not wearing a helmet, driving with more than one rider, not having, you know, driver's license. But the penalty only ranges from about $20 to the maximum about $100. So there definitely needs to be more regulations put in place. However, I think the system also needs to change.
The system, all right, and we'll cover that soon after I asked Chihi too. Any ideas on how we can better regulate or ensure safer roads for a lot of people? And why don't you start us off by talking about it in the riders and users' perspective?
Right, so at an individual level, I'd say users must be more aware of the regulations and rules that are related to e-scooters. And if we want to better educate them, campaigns, safety campaigns, as our lawyer, Mr. Kwan, explained to us earlier, must be put in place at the city level as well, because not many people know. I mean, you're a very well-educated e-scooter because many know that they have to pay for the ride, but they don't know where they should ride them. And parking, it's relatively easier to park.
It really is.
And I see them lying around everywhere in these narrow streets where I have to drive my car through.
Such a hassle.
It's a hassle. It gives headaches. So users must be better educated. They should be better aware, and they should also be more cautious when they're using these.
Right. And what about you, Cheska? You mentioned that we need a better system. Does that mean the government or officials should, you know, roll up their sleeves and think of better solutions for this?
Please do.
Please do.
Because as I mentioned, I gave you an example of some of the European countries, but it's very important that, of course, the users must know exactly what they can do and can't do. But also when the system is set in place as an avid bike rider, for instance, having the right bike path or scooter path, or having the right traffic lights for bicycles, or even, you know, paving the road so that the bikes and the pedestrians are not endangered in the same place. These are very, very fundamental infrastructure that need to be set in place to protect all of us, to be honest.
And I also want to add, because I heard that the city government of Seoul said the bike lanes, which we can ride the e-scooters on, we don't have enough of them.
We really don't.
We really don't.
So the absolute length of them is only 1/4 of the pedestrian roads, which is really little. And we're asking these e-scooter riders to stay on the road or the not away from the pedestrian road,
Yeah.
right? Then we must accommodate them and build more bike lanes at least so that they can be used more safely in the
And
city.
you have to think about the pros of riding e-scooters too. Of course, there are these safety hazards for sure, but you know, there's a lot of environmental pros from it if more and more people start using e-scooters.
True.
But in order for us to do that, we need better infrastructure, better public education, and better awareness on what type of safety hazards there are.
Yes.
And I hope today's broadcast could really help you guys give an insight on that matter. And we'll be here every day from 9:30 a.m. to 10 a.m. Korea time, bringing you more topics that young people are talking about. Special thanks to Choi Ji-hin
Always my pleasure.
and Cheska Dain-hong.
Pleasure's mine. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. We are
News Generation.